in another form of medicine, the digestion is for assimilation of food and fluids.
Yeah.
But it's also for assimilation of thoughts and emotions.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that's why the spleen is
But
together with BP. Because if you're not digesting your thoughts and emotions, it's pressure building.
yeah, but the thing is, you're also getting low blood pressure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're going to be able to make a lot of, I mean, from what the part that I resonate with what you said is not so much the blood pressure,
But how important the spleen is in any emotional issues.
Yes.
The thing is, most people will not automatically agree with you that blood pressure is an emotional issue. For some people it would be, for some people it really is a physiological. You know, so just...
No, I was thinking about emotions as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that spleen and whenever you have any sort of emotional issues, do not ignore the spleen. You know, I think it's a big mistake that people will tend to not. Because if you have an emotional issue, you know, whatever that might be, however you define these things, you have to have consciousness of it, otherwise there's not going to be an issue. Like, you can be whatever it is, other people may think you have an issue, but if you don't think you have an issue, you don't have an issue health-wise. Does that make sense? And that means that it requires awareness. The awareness, the intention of the heart, the yi, is the spleen. The spleen is responsible for the yi. Okay, without the yi, there's no real emotions in a certain way. So the yi is always responsible for all the fuck-ups we have emotionally. No, I mean seriously, because it's without, this is what gives substance, you know, for pathology to be able to happen, is the awareness of it. So like, for example, if you're a Taoist, you know, it's okay that you're all pissed off or whatever it is. It's kind of like, you know, they're not like the Confucians. Well, please do not throw up at the dinner table. You know, that's very Confucian. We do not do this. You know, the Taoist is like, hey, do what you want. It's once we become aware, and therefore we say, oh, it's not right. You know, that's the spleen. That constriction comes from the spleen. Okay, so therefore all emotional problems are going to probably have a spleen type component. And you can see, so we say REN 15, REN 17 are emotional reflexes. The way we do, you know, the fix is spleen, the official dogma is spleen 3 plus pericardium. Check pericardium 8 and decide accordingly. Well, blood pressure, so in a sense that's kind of in line with your thinking, except that Nagano sort of when it isn't spleen 3 with pericardium, it's spleen 6 and 9. And my understanding is that he basically tried to, you know, he had this idea that the spleen would do the blood pressure, but he wasn't sure what, you know, and he just tried different points and arrived at that. You know,
Well, if we talk about spleen 6, we're also talking about the liver and the kidney points that actually coalesce at that point as they run through.
Yeah.
So there's a bit more.
Yeah, there is a possibility that there is more going on there, and you know, but yeah, spleen 6 we definitely use, you know, for all sorts of headaches. It's like a big point for, and spleen 6 we use for anemia. So those are the three big uses of spleen 6. Okay, and also we have a concept called stagnant blood in the head. Okay, so you know, originally we said postpartum depression. Okay, they will have do 20 pain or heat, or when you touch, it's mushy. It's not tight there. And that's the same as blood pressure treatment, except it doesn't have under the third toe. So that's against spleen 6, spleen 9, pericardium. Originally it was pericardium 3, but now we always say check pericardium 8, plus lung 5. So the difference is you add lung 5 to this stagnant blood in the head. What we think of it is, you cut the abdomen, you cut something in the lower abdomen, the lower dantian, and you can think about it like in TCM as yin, fire rising, but we don't use those terms, and it flashes up. The damage, you know, in pregnancy, you're pushing so hard, you're damaging the lower dantian, and then it flashes up. Now, REN 4, now that is a worthwhile concept. So, REN 4 is called Guan Yuan. This is Yuan, okay? And the Guan is a gate. Stop here. Okay, so it's, the Guan is just a gate passing through, and Yuan. And this Yuan, so you often you translate Ren 4 is I don't know what you translate Ren 4 as.
Original gate.
Original gate, okay. This yuan does not mean source or original in the same way as the source points. For example, there's different, the meaning is very similar, but it's written differently. The other yuan is with water, and it's the other yuan, the origin of something is like, it's the origin of the stream. That's why it has water on it. So it's like the fountain that starts the stream, or the well that starts the stream. So, okay. This is two legs with a head above it. This really means this is primary as in head. Okay, the primary thing. Okay, as opposed to the source of things. Okay, so it's a slightly different connotation of yuan. Okay, so what it tells you, it has the head in it. Ren 4 and the head are highly correlated. Okay, in all of our thinking. So we have this idea, if you take your nose and stick it, flip your head and put it on your abdomen, so your nose will end up in the navel, center and center, right? That makes sense. Your eyes will end up on stomach 25. So, for example, we say if you have eye problems, acute, not long-term eye problems, the reflex can be stomach 25. Ears, reflex on liver 13. And the top of the head, do 20, reflex on Ren 4. Okay, so you basically took your head and flipped it around into your abdomen. Okay, so, but Ren 4 to us has a very strong connection to the head. And if you're looking at modern physiological understanding, whereby the small intestine digestion and bacterial, the microbiome affects mood and affects thinking. Okay, so they've had experiments where they literally take microbiome from one person and put it in another. The Germans are big into that, this kind of stuff. And then the personality and the thoughts and patterns change and stuff. So your microbiome, the gut flora, really does affect your brain. Okay, and somehow the Chinese recognize, because this is the moot point of the small intestine, of digestion, that has to do with digestion. I know in Chinese we often kind of ignore the fact that the small intestine is digestion, but it still is. It's not like they didn't know that. They just said that the power, the main energetics of it, the power of it, came from the stomach and the spleen. They're not saying, because they're talking about the small intestine separates the pure from the turbid. It's not like they're saying that small intestine is a different, has nothing to do with it. Okay? They're just saying that it's kind of under the command of the spleen and stomach. Okay? So I think that they did somehow understand that the small intestine and digestive process and that separation has something to do with the head, especially since they're talking about you separating the pure from the turbid, and the pure, the fine part of the pure is what comes up to the head. Right? It's we have to kind of read these things and kind of try and make out, according to our culture. Because it won't help us to try and, we don't understand what their culture was 2,000 years ago. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. How do you needle liver 12?
Up towards from the thigh into the body. So, you're below your growing, slightly below the growing line, because nobody's going to like it if you're right on the growing line. Yeah. Slightly below, say, a few fingers below, and towards the body. Okay.
I've got a question about the lady who's had her leg amputated, but is that
Oh.
I can ask you
Okay.
another time if you...
No, it's okay. So there's two sides of that question. So she has a woman who has a leg amputated. What do you do? Okay. So for example, lots of it. So one part of the answer is some people come and say, you can't touch my right arm because I've had mastectomy and I had all my lymph nodes. That's pretty common. That arm, as far as you're concerned, might as well have been amputated. Okay, because you can't touch it. They won't let you needle it because the doctor told them no needles in this arm. It's like you can say, well, I have very sterile needle. Doesn't matter. It's not worth getting into, right? So it's not uncommon that you basically have a body, or some people, I'm phobic. It's like I have a problem if you touch my blah blah, patients come like that, you cannot touch this part of my body. So you just have to accept that that part of the body is not available, and I believe this point over there is like so fabulous, it will do the job. It's like, well, it's not available to you. So, you just have to rev up your imagination, come up with something else, and be thankful that you have another part of the body. Now, in the case of amputation, it's a little bit easier in a sense, because number one, I'm assuming the amputation is below the knee?
Yes.
Okay, so you still have the meridian still exist up here. So, but the other thing now, it's going to depend on the patient, how willing they are. On the stump, if there may not be any feeling, that's not for the faint of heart. So it's not the most lovely thing to look at. But you can try. Now, because needles, the stump is usually not the place to needle. But what you can do, and that's why I asked you if you had diode rings, you can put diode rings on it. Diode rings, they have a diode which moves electricity only in one direction. Okay, and we use them on the fingers. I mean, there's a bunch of fuses that we have for diode rings. But you can put diode rings on it.
Okay.
And it's going to not always be so easy to tell which channel is which, but you can try and see if something on the stump activates what you want. But otherwise, use above.
Okay. Because you were talking,
And if there's stump pain,
yeah, she has got to.
okay, what you do is you put the diodes or a chain with a 3 bypass cord, wrap with aluminum foil, and spark.
Okay. So, yeah.
So that's kind of a whole other style, there's a whole toy style. We have a bunch of toys. This comes from Kauai, so Kauai worked with Manaka, so it's based on this whole iron pumping business. And the diode comes from the iron pumping cords. The iron pumping cords have a diode in them. So you probably have heard of iron pumping cords. So it's a whole, it's sort of an extreme version of iron pumping cords, this whole, all this stuff that Kauai has a whole bunch of toys. So it's a whole different field. So, anyone else before we move on?
So just to clarify, we were talking yesterday about the lifting up, and that's what I was thinking about this patient. Would you be...
You still have motion. You don't
Okay.
have kidneys, I mean, you don't have kidney 6 on one side, but you still have inner yin. Yeah, I mean, of course that person's lift is going to come from a slightly different place at this point than the foot. Now, all again depending on, do they have a prosthesis? I would really, that's something I would have to really look at and could have to figure out in some manner, because obviously the whole gait is totally different. She's presumably with a prosthesis relying on something below the knee. And do you have remnants of gallbladder 34, which I'm assuming you don't?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Go and spleen 9.
Okay, so she has part of
And some at 36 even as well.
Okay, so she has part of the fibula and whatever the other bone is called there. Sorry? Tibia and fibula. That's it. So she has part of those bones.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I would look at the area below the knee as her support mechanism there, as well as stomach 34 spleen 9 as a possibility. But if she still has remnants of those bones, I'm only guessing, I don't have the body to be able to do it, but I'm guessing that you're still going to use that. You're going to have to somehow. That ability to rotate, the tibia and the fibula, is part of your standing posture. Because without it, you really, if you just had one bone there, we'll be standing very differently. I don't exactly know how, but we do need that capacity to rotate, which, if you notice, is much greater in the arm. Nobody can do this with a foot, and let alone do this with a lower leg. It's much more stabilized. Okay, and if you notice, your elbows and your knees are up, we can't stand with our elbows going forward. The knees are going forward, the elbows are going back, which gives you the capacity to move in the arms and to move forward. Because imagine if your knees went backwards. You'd be walking backwards. It's kind of, but I mean, it's by design. It's like, that's the, all animals have knees moving forward, except with us, where, well, actually, no, and with the shoulders, they're moving back, I believe. I'd have to check that. Yeah, no, with four-legged creatures, it's also like that. So there's a certain design out there with limbs that we have flipped. Whereas if you look at, crocodiles or whatever, the amphibians, they're like this, right? Their legs are going out. They're not underneath them. So there's some weird thing that's happened to us evolutionary that allows us, because our legs are underneath them. Do you ever see, like, you see this every so often, somebody's like this, and there's something wrong with their brain, you can tell, because I'm not talking, there's older people, they have to walk with their legs wide because they can't keep the balance. That's something that comes from the neck, okay? But you have people who are like, it's not a lack of balance, they're like this. There's something wrong with their brain. The development isn't right. Because why are their legs facing outwards instead of straight this way? There's just some lack of coordination there. So I think we were at Ren 12. We did not talk about that being across Ren 12, stomach 21 to stomach 21. Okay? So we call that, when we have like a raised, do you want a small review of what we went through? Literally 5 minutes, so no questions the next 3 minutes. Okay. So we talked about left stomach 26, 27, we call ketsu. Treatment for that is liver 4, lung 5 on the left side. Right under kidney 16, we call adrenal. Treatment for that is kidney 6 plus 27. We can replace kidney 6 with other kidney points below the knee, especially we check kidney 2.
To see if there's pain. Remember, I don't press on kidney 2, it's more like I'm going through it, because kidney 2 is a big area, okay? And then we do, if the kidney 2 is painful, we do kidney 7 and kidney 10, plus 27. Also, adrenal you can say that adrenal is indicated by kidney 2 only. It doesn't have to have the below kidney 16, the 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock business. That's acceptable to say that that's adrenal 2.
Could you say that again?
Sorry?
Could you say that again?
Yeah. Originally, adrenal is below kidney 16. That's the reflex. What I'm saying is, if you have kidney 2 pressure pain, especially if you have it both sides, you can assume adrenal treatment. But that adrenal treatment is kidney 7 plus 10 plus 27. It's not going to be kidney 6 plus 27. Okay? And adrenal treatment can also be kidney 3 plus 27. It can be kidney 9 plus 27. But if you have kidney 2 pain, pressure pain, it's going to be 7 and 10 plus 27. Then we talked about right side stomach 26, 27. And that can be a number of different things. It can be lung reflex. So try lung 8 and then fix the lungs. Look for other lung reflexes. We talked about the trochanter point that releases the lungs. And then if it can be immune reflex. Immune also shows behind the SCM of Sanjiao 16. And the treatment is immune point between large intestine 10 and 11 on the bone. Find the point that releases Sanjiao 16 and or right side stomach 26. It can be a digestive reflex. Now, anybody who's had appendectomy is going to fall into a spleen 9 category. It's one of those dogmas, okay? Because it's a disruption of the spleen. Okay? So basically, it's a spleen metal water. Spleen 5, spleen 9, spleen 9 in this case being the main one. Okay? But if it's digestion, can be a number of, you can fix it with it. Spleen is one option. Now, so I'll give you a number of other options. For example, people who have IBS, okay, we tend to do liver and spleen metal water. Okay, so we're going to look for, which side do you have spleen 2 pain, liver 2 pain, fire points, and treat the metal point.
metal water points of the channel that I found. Okay, stomach chi, those bumps below stomach 40 will be another good option. And if you think it's something like candida, some sort of yeast growth or an inflammatory process, use that stomach 41 that's towards gallbladder, that's from the gallbladder 40 side, needle towards gallbladder 40. Okay? And then it can also be a pelvic shift, right side stomach 26, 27. And if it's a pelvic shift, I'm not going to try and fix it from the front. I'm not trying to get rid of the reflex, but to make sure that I know I'm going to push on the sacroiliac ligaments as they're lying face up. Push on the sacroiliac ligaments and see if that alleviates stomach 26, 27. Okay? So those are kind of few options. And occasionally with women especially, you can get right side stomach 26, 27 with right side kidney 2 pain. So that's a kidney sort of situation. Remember, because stomach 26, 27 on the right side is between rent 4, lower, and the next space wood. So it's how the kidney is going to move forward. Okay?
So could you repeat 26 and 27 and in women with kidney 2 pain?
With kidney 2 pain on the right side.
Oh, you're going a bit fast for
Yeah,
me.
it's a review. I mean, you weren't here yesterday, right? Yeah, so it's not even a review for you. Poor thing. There'll be video of it, don't worry. So,
What about IBS? That's not IBS, irritable bowel. The same.
irritable bowel is IBS. Irritable bowel syndrome. You have a different terminology here?
What did I say?
You said, excuse me, not IBS, what about irritable bowel?
Diverticulitis. Sorry.
Diverticulitis?
My brain's done a bit of grief.
Okay.
Diverticulitis.
No, it's not going to be that. I don't have a lot of experience, to be honest. I think inner yin, you're going to have to affect that, because inner yin, we use inner yin for constipation. Inner yin basically because the adductors are basically a continuum. Well, I can't tell which is what the name of these things are. The adductors are continuation of, if you move up the adductor, especially on the left side, it's going to go into the rectum. So muscularly, so I would look at this to try and kind of get the tissue to stretch out and release.
Yeah.
But I can't guarantee it.
Thank you.
So.
And general constipation? Is that?
Constipation, I'd look at, inner yin will be one of the constipations. Yao yan, the lumbar eye on the back. You know, the dimple in the,
Oh, yeah.
okay. And then check stomach and gallbladder fire points and do metal water.
Stomach, gallbladder.
And does Kiiko, you get the leg out like that and use a rolling pin to roll up the in a yin?
That's, yeah, I don't know, not so much for constipation, yeah, you know, there are certain things that Kiiko says that because they're so cute, everybody remember, it's like this, everybody gets into this rolling pin business. I would say rolling pin, I would do more for hormonal stuff that show. By the way, inner yin, this area is a hormonal area. I would do that for, a lot of women will have bumpy. And if you feel that, that's not the constipation type so much. Okay, but if you feel lots of bumps, yeah, you want to roll it because, you know, like on the outside you can do a foam roller. Okay, because you can lie on it, but you can't get enough weight on here, so you have to actually apply it with your hands. But yes, you could do, but not so much for constipation, generally speaking. So, all right, REN 12 we talked about is basically, REN 12 itself can be used for lots of spinal problems, because it has to do with marrow, as well as REN 10 and 13, they all share the same name. Okay. But otherwise it's stomach digestion. Definitely check T5 when you have REN 12, so that on the back you do T5. And otherwise for REN 12, the fix for that is kidney, something on the kidney, stomach chi, but your ultimate card is the immune points. Okay. So now we're at this beam. Stomach 21 across to stomach 21. And some people, you can almost see like there's a little heel
coming across, okay, like this. Okay, it's puffy. This is called pancreatitis tummy, weak pancreas. Okay? And the treatment for that is adrenal. So it's supposed to be kidney 6 plus 27, but it might be a different kidney than kidney 6. Plus lung 5. This is what, plus lung 5 is an option to add, but the main thing is plus spleen 5. Spleen 5 is our main anti-inflammatory point. Especially for digestion. The other anti-inflammatory point we use is liver 5. Our liver 5 is going to be higher than the TCM1. It's about halfway between the ankle bone and spleen 9, and it's going to be on the bone, and you'll find a hole there. Okay, the name of the point of liver 5 is wormhole. Okay, now that's not a Star Trek connotation, unlike the Cardassian. It literally means a worm that burrows a hole in the wood channel. So what you need to do with that when you have in a house, when you have termites, what do you do with them? You smoke them out. Okay, so what you do with a worm that's eating up your wood channel is you moxe the hole. It's the same. Now, your liver channel, I would like to tell you, your liver channel is on the bone. I know many people take it behind the bone, which basically makes it a spleen point. Okay, and I know some very, well-trained and big practitioners who do this. Okay, that to me, because look, this is the liver channel, so I'm ending up on the bone. The liver channel is clearly defined this way. There's really, you can't, and the spleen is defined as behind the bone, therefore the liver is on the bone.
Actually on the bone.
Actually on the, come here.
How do you needle it then?
Do you see this? Do you see this hole here? Touch.
My goodness.
My goodness, it's on the bone.
That is significant.
That is significant.
What do you say, what's halfway between the...
About halfway. You find the hole, about halfway. No, the spleen. The measurement of the bone.
Yeah.
Well, I already pressed it. Don't you know, I have endometriosis, that's why I have liver 5 shows.
I always thought it was in that notch there, but it's actually
It's on the bone. The notch behind is spleen 7.
Okay, the notch is
Spleen 7, read the damn text. Spleen line is behind the bone, attached to the bone is spleen.
Real
is
work,
the
properly on
spleen.
the...
Okay, now by the way, spleen 9, when you find spleen 9, go up the back of the bone, and when your finger wants to move, because the bone has a, whatever it's called, a trochanter or whatever, the bone flares, I like that. The bone, before the bone flares and forces you, that's your spleen 9, and you needle into here, upwards. Okay, that's spleen 9. Don't take it further back. Stay in line of the channel. You take it further back, you're off the channel, in my opinion. Okay.
So to needle liver 5, you just do it very
I
shallow.
wouldn't needle liver 5, it's a moxa point for me.
Oh, you don't needle it?
I very rarely, some people can't take moxa, their nervous system is so sensitive, they can't take the on-off business of moxa. But no, liver 5 for me is a moxa point. By definition of the name of the point. Okay. Liver 5 is another great anti-inflammatory point, especially for the lower jaw. And liver 5 is your best point for endometriosis. Okay, it's, just take that as a dogma and trust that it's true.
Again, with what?
With moxa. I mean, you can try needles, you can try magnets, you can try all the, it's like, listen, if you're one of those people, there's no way I'm doing direct moxa. You're allowed. Nobody's going to force you to do the moxa, but, the better is the moxa.
You mean a needle and moxa at the where the
No, I mean
just
moxa.
moxa.
No,
That's
need for
direct moxa, you're not
That's
talking
direct
about...
moxa, I'm not talking. Okay, if you want to do liver 5, do you have a moxa pole here, somewhere in the school?
Poles?
A moxa cigar?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, there will be some.
Okay,
Yeah.
so later on, and if somebody has the Sunday newspaper, I'll show you how you can do it without direct moxa. It's not the best, but it's better. Okay, also, what, you're looking?
I think the air would get very heavy in here if you done moxa down here, that sort of moxa.
Oh, okay, no
Oh, you
problem,
don't want to?
we'll do it somewhere, we'll
Yeah,
go
yeah.
outside and do it outside.
Yeah. I'll do it upstairs. It's just the air handling unit isn't
Yeah,
working
no
that
no
well in
problem, we
here.
won't do it here.
Honestly, it's
We
going to
will
be
not do it
horrible
here,
for them
I
next
totally
week.
understand. The advantage of doing cigar, moxa, with newspapers, is that it's a lot shorter. You're not gonna, you know how when you do stomach 36 and you're going, forever, this takes 2 minutes. But yeah, I hate the smell also, so I'd rather, we can go somewhere outside and on the parking lot. Parking lot's even better.
What about those little stick-on ones that you stick on and then would they be as good?
For you, if that's the only thing that you can do, do it. It's not the same as, the stick-ons are warm. The direct moxa it's different, it's much more direct, it should feel like a needle going through. Yeah, but if that's, lots of people do it, I mean, you said you use some sort of...
Yeah, when I talked to Kiiko about it, she said what she uses is also takes a tiger warmer and uses the tiger warmer incense stick, sometimes the non-smoky one,
Yeah.
and does like sparrow pecking using she says that's the closest thing she thinks to
Direct moxa?
to direct moxa. But when she can't have smoke, she uses her banshin, she's got the banshin.
Oh, okay. But she uses the incense not in the tiger warmer, without the tiger warmer?
She takes the top off the tiger warmer, just so it's a nice way to hold it, lights it, and she just used
then
it.
you can just use an incense stick.
You just go like it as though you do a sparrow pecking with the big one, but you're using a
Do not
tiny
touch the
point.
skin.
Yeah, don't touch the skin. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing how, like, people have different images of what's going on. So, because for me, I happen to like doing moxa, so it's not an issue. But I know that for a lot of people it is, and my suggestion on that is just think about it as a meditation. It's kind of fun, I mean, really. So that was the beam. Stomach 21 is an ulcer reflex, okay? And if it's on the left side, it's considered a stomach ulcer, and if it's on the right side, you would think of it as possibly a duodenal ulcer. The treatment for that is spleen 4, pericardium 6, generally speaking. But because ulcers often also come with, want to release the vagus nerve, then you might want to do triple warmer 8 also to release the SCM. Okay. REN 15 we call worry reflex. Okay. Oh, REN 9 we talked about if there's a pulse. Hopefully that one you remember. I do mushu. Okay. Mushu, possibly mushu plus UB2. Okay. But if that's not, the original recipe for REN 9 pulse is right side stomach 24 plus left gallbladder 26. And REN 17 is we call anxiety reflex. And for that, REN 15 worry, when we did finish that. So with REN 15 is spleen 3 plus pericardium. And that's the same solution for REN 17, except in REN 17, before we do that, release the lymph nodes in the neck with either immune point, triple warmer 8, or you can even needle Sandar 16, gallbladder 20 for REN 17.
Release lymph.
Sorry?
Sorry, you said release lymph points in the neck with the immune point.
With immune point and or triple warmer 8.
REN 15, you said the spleen 3 and pericardium what?
And any pericardium. And pericardium meaning check pericardium 8 and accordingly decide which point you're using. Meaning, if pericardium 8 is painful, you do 3 and 5. Pericardium 8 is not painful, either 6 or 4, 3 fingers below 3. Okay, either. So how do you choose? Which one does the better job on REN 15 or something on the neck or whatever you find in the body? Okay. Liver. We check liver both under the ribs as well as on liver 14, and I compare left side to right side. If they say, dull pain, we call liver deficiency. If they say sharp pain on liver 14 or below the ribs, we would consider it to be excess. But that is not, so hold on, let me find where the liver thing is. It's It's not always so clear. Some people can have mixtures. And I'm not finding the liver thing anywhere.
Page 5.
Page 5, okay, thank you. Right, because it started, okay. So, dull pain supposedly should be liver 1. Okay, we have a bunch of liver 1s. So you have, this is the big toe. This is the next toe, okay. So, you have different definitions of liver 1, partially depending on the book anyway. But this is the Jingwell point, like how a normal Jingwell, you know, the liver and the pericardium Jingwells are different than all the other Jingwells, right? Because this is not a normal Jingwell point for pericardium. The same with liver. Okay. There is, by the way, a liver 1 here that we use for red eyes. That's not the liver 1 I'm talking about. That will not be for liver. But, so generally speaking, between the first crease and the nail on this side, this is the textbook liver 1. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. I find that more effective is make it look like a regular Jingwell point. Okay. You also have a liver 1 that will be on the crease. That's number 3. Then you have a definition from, that's actually quite common definition in certain texts, is that it's in the middle of the nail, halfway between the crease and the nail. That's one more. And then you have another one here, so you actually have 5. Kiiko likes this one the most. It seems to work for her. The middle of the toe, halfway between the nail and the crease. I tend to like what I would call what would be like the Jingwell point, which is not officially the Jingwell point, is halfway through between, but on the side, okay? So Kiiko likes this one, I happen to like this one. I mean, when I say like, it happens to work more for me.
Sorry, why is that not the official? You mean that's not the one on the tip?
The official one is halfway. Every other Jingwell point is defined as take the edge of the nail and go to the side. That's the normal definition of a Jingwell point. This liver 1, if you look at the text, it's not defined that way. It's defined as halfway between the nail and the crease. Okay? And which really, in my belief, comes from this definition of this one, which you see in Yang Jitsu. You see, when you see liver 1 used for, they often talk about liver 1 used for hernia, they're talking about this one. Okay, so I think that people try to make this fit in what they thought the channel really should go here. They try to make it fit, so they put liver 1 here. I mean, it's just different schools of thought that are trying to kind of compromise. I mean, okay, do you know where TCM comes from?
China?
It's made up in the cultural tradition.
Okay, that's actually wrong. That's not true. Okay, so this is a common misperception that people have, that Mao invented TCM. I highly doubt that Mao had any sort of thinking about TCM. Yes, he promoted it. He promoted the plumber can do the acupuncturist's job in a sense. So in a sense, we all blame Mao for this thing. But so just to look at development of, because it affects us too. Now, and it happens right now also, the same sort of situations. So in China in the late 1800s, because of the Western influences, etc., Chinese medicine became less prominent. And Western medicine became more kind of, what's a better thing to do is to be a doctor in a three-piece suit rather than some, doctor who rings the bell in a village and gets people around to come and, and do things. So what they did, and then there were 5 big schools, which still exist today, the Beijing, Nanjing, Shanghai, Chengdu, and Guangzhou, okay? In 1905, they decided they are schools. Now, no offense to schools here, I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but that's what they did. They said, we are the schools. We do not want all those family traditions. We want to get rid of them because we want everyone to come to us. That's what we nowadays call licensing.
Okay? We're going to tell everybody how they should practice and what kind of exams they should pass. Before there were, there were imperial physicians, and most of the texts that we're reading, are from imperial physicians. Who else had the money or the capacity to write, or who else would get to be an imperial physician unless they wrote and were famous, unless you happen to be Sun Miao, who ran away from the imperial court. That's why he had to run away somewhere near Chengdu, so that they wouldn't catch him and say, by the way, can you come back and your sabbatical is over, So if you're an imperial physician, you got to write the books, okay? So yet there was a big diversity of kinds of practitioners, okay? The people working in the villages, the people working with, let's say, the middle class, and then the imperial physicians. So there's different kind. That doesn't make one better. It's just different status socially. Then the 5 schools in 1905, they get together and they write a text that's called the 5 schools text. That's the origin of TCM. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to standardize. So it's not like you call this point like this because of this tradition, and you think like this, and no, it's like we're not interested in these family traditions. We're going to do, this is the standard, and we're all going to conform to that standard. Okay? And the purpose is you have to come to us, pay us money, and pay tribute to us. What happened was, yes, Mao then took that as Chinese medicine, but it wasn't his fault. And because he wanted to promote something that's Chinese, and he wanted to promote something that's accessible, that's when then you get the barefoot doctor situations and stuff like that. But look at what barefoot doctor points are. They have nothing to do with TCM. Why we blame Mao for TCM? So this is something that's just, it's the natural, this happened, I don't know about in England, but in the United States, that happened in Western medicine too. They got rid of all the non-Western doctors of what they considered at the time was real doctors, except the osteopaths, which are different in America. It's not the same, because I think here osteopath is a little bit more like chiropractor in the US. So osteopaths, if you're an osteopathic doctor, if you're an OD, you're basically an MD. Because they somehow, the osteopaths managed to keep their colleges and become part of the medical system. So an OD has prescriptive capacities. They're just like an MD. They just happen to have gone to a different school. But everyone else was basically wiped out. So this happens all the time in different cultures. Different forms of medicine disappear, and 100 years later we don't know what it was. So, that's kind of our responsibility to look at, how do we preserve diversity in the medicine? I'm speaking as someone who's, clearly not in the mainstream of Chinese medicine. Okay, so just to kind of keep that in mind. But anyway, that was a sidebar. So, moving on to the liver. So, liver 1 is for liver deficiency, meaning dull pain. But if they jump, okay, that's considered excess. Then we have 3 kinds of excess liver that we consider. One is they have clear liver damage. That can be because they've had hepatitis, or still have hepatitis, or it can be because they had radiation, chemo, something like that. By the way, any cancer, you have to treat liver, you have to treat thyroid. Okay? These are 2 organs that are going to be involved in cancer. Okay? Toxicity, which affects, by the way, the thyroid, but in this case, we're talking about thyroid because it's metabolism. Okay? Cancer is what? It's rapid growth. It's going to be dependent on the thyroid. Okay? So you have, for the excess, if it is actual liver damage, physical liver damage, we do kidney 7, spleen 7, heart 3, pericardium 4. 3 fingers below pericardium 3, all on the right side. That comes from a sentence in the Nanjing that says, it actually doesn't say when the liver is in excess, it says when the eastern mountains cannot be controlled by the western mountains. Basically, when the liver cannot, you have to translate a little bit, I understand. When the liver is not controlled by the lung by the 5-element cycle, the lung is the controller, it's the grandmother of wood. It's supposed to control wood. It says you can't do it. It doesn't work like that. Okay? So, and this comes right after the chapter that says tonify mother,
reduce some, interestingly enough. So then it says, when you cannot do this with the liver, when the lung is not controlling the liver, the solution is tonify the water and reduce the fire. What does that tell you? Tonify water for wood means tonify mother. Okay, so you're tonifying in the case of excess. Reduce the sun, reduce the fire. Okay, that's what you would do for reducing, which means that in liver excess, there's no such thing as, even though it appears like excess, there's always going to be deficiency in the liver. Why? And you see this in herb formulas as well. There is no such, I've never seen an herb formula to drain the liver, what they call it dredging the liver or something like that, is the expression, without tonifying the blood. Because if you dredge the liver and you leave the liver without blood, it's like a sponge that you dried out totally, and then the sponge is thorny. So you have to protect the blood. In many cases, and if you look at the most famous formula for liver qi stagnation, which is Xiao Yao San, I know some of you are herbal and some of you are not, it's really a spleen formula to tonify blood. There is very little in there that is officially a liver herb. You have mint, it's not a liver herb. Yeah, I mean, it's just not exactly a, and even chai hu, which people talk about a liver herb, chai hu, bupleuron, is actually, if you look at the, it's really a release exterior herb. And yet it's the most famous herb for liver. If you're really looking at dredging liver, you have to look at herbs like gardenia, jitsu. Okay, so and every time you see formulas with clear heat in the liver herbs, you're going to see either Bai Xiao or Dang Wei in that formula. You never see a formula with Wang Qing Jitsu, stuff like that, without protecting the liver. So that phrase in the Nanjing, I believe it's chapter 72, but I'm not 100% sure if that's the correct chapter, is expressing that idea that when you're reducing, you still have to tonify. So kidney 7 is a kidney point. For us, spleen 7 is a point on the spleen channel that relates to the kidney. For example, spleen 7 we use, number 1 in this case. Number 2, we use it for water retention. Now you can say water retention has to do with the spleen, but it clearly has to do with the kidney also. I mean, the kidneys are what gets rid of water. Okay? And we also use spleen 7, we use for ear infections. And then we also use spleen 7 for too much bleeding. Our stop bleeding point is not so much spleen 1, but it's more spleen 7. Okay? And in spleen 7, we're looking for a nodule behind the bone, either a nodule or a depression behind the bone. Okay? Heart 3 and pericardium 4, that's to reduce the sun. Okay, reduce fire. These are the fire elements. So this formula of kidney 7, spleen 7, heart 3, pericardium 4 is very useful for excess liver situations. Now we have other excess liver situations. For example, they may have liver 2 pain, in which case we'll do metal water, liver 4, liver 8. We also have a situation where people have mouth sores, and that we use spleen 3, liver 3. Okay, that's the only time I use liver 3. I'm not big on liver 3. Or large intestine 4.
What about tonsils from chemo?
Well, okay, so if it's chemo, well, you can, if it's chemo, do the liver excess treatment. By the way, that liver excess treatment is also very good treatment for people with blood count issues from chemo. But add liver 3 and spleen 3. You can, look, in that my liver excess treatment, there's not a single liver point. Right? Therefore, I can add liver 3. And spleen 3, spleen 7 don't fight each other. They work together because spleen 7 is not a named point. Spleen 3 is an earth point, but spleen 7 is not. It's not an element point, it's not a Shiklet point, it's not a Lua point. They're happy together. In fact, for water retention, when people have water retention in the legs, we use spleen 3 and spleen 7 together. Plus spleen 11, but a little less important. Then you have what we call fatty liver. Okay? So those are the people who are, they're either fat, okay, and if you live where I live, you get lots of it, they're like huge, that's fatty liver, or they know I have fatty liver because the doctor told them, or they have high cholesterol, or things of that nature. The treatment for that, okay, the original treatment for that, which you will need to do for someone if they are huge, really, the two-seater person on the plane kind of thing. Those you start on the left side. Gallbladder 26, I believe it's all written, but it's okay. Gallbladder 26 on the left, stomach 27 on the left, Ren 6 in the center. Do not do Ren 6 if they have a slow pulse. You can skip that one. Then right side stomach 25, right side liver 13. Okay, so you're going from the left to the right to the liver. Okay. Now, if they're not obese and it's just fatty liver, you can just do right side stomach 25, right liver 13. Okay,
Sorry, what was that, right?
Right stomach 25, right liver 13. In other words, you don't have to come from the left.
Yeah.
Right stomach 25, right liver 13 for fatty liver. Okay? So lots of people have fatty liver. It's just extremely common. All liver types on the back, there's a good chance they'll show T7 to T9 or UB18, UB17 area. On the back, on the right, do left side UB35. Left UB35 for it. Why? It's the same thing like Oketsu shows on the left. From the portal vein comes to the liver from the left side. Continuation of the portal, if you trace it back, then you have the rectal vein. What happens when if you see people like really late stage cirrhosis, they'll have esophageal varicosity, they'll cough blood, and they'll have hemorrhoids. Because of the congestion of the liver, the blood can't move back to the liver, so all these veins, so you're seeing the veins that are kind of closest, they're not bleeding from the toes. Maybe really late stage they do, I don't know.
What was that? Sorry, what are you describing?
Late stage cirrhosis.
Like, late stage.
Okay,
Coughing blood
so
and
they'll
hemorrhoids.
have esophageal varicosity and they'll have hemorrhoids. So what I'm saying is UB35 is looking at the rectal vein, pushing the blood through to the liver, from the rectal to the portal to the liver. Okay. Now the name of UB35 is called Hui Yang, meeting of Yang, and the name of T7, the dew point on T7, I believe it's dew 9, my number, is Zhe Yang, reaching Yang. The meeting of the Yang treats the reaching of the Yang.
Meeting of the Yang treats the what?
The meeting of the one Wei Yang treats Zhe Yang, reaching Yang. Zhe Yang is dew 9 of T7. Okay, that's where this idea comes from. But UB35 is on the left side, even though the symptoms are on the right. Now, typically, liver people will often show UB43 on the right side. UB43, remember, the name is Gao Wang Hu. We talked about Wang yesterday, but Gao means fat. Okay, so liver types will have fat issues often. Okay, so again, you can treat right side UB35, UB43. Right side UB43 you can treat with left side UB35. Okay, so don't think that UB35 left side only treats T17-8. It also treats any right side issues with a liver type person above T9. Yes?
Can I ask, I've got a gentleman who's got, I don't know if you'd call it fatty liver, but it's basically just rock hard, very tense in there. I've tried a lot of the liver protocols, but nothing seems to work that well. Fatty liver treatment maybe seems to work the best.
If it's very hard, I don't know if we would call it, I don't, if it's, I'm not so sure. So, okay, so this is the next part of the lecture. I don't know if that will help, but let's try. The problem with liver is they don't always fall into the exosodeficient types, so you need a bunch of tricks